Our next discussion, we've got a fantastic panel. We're having a discussion on the concept of homegrown concepts succeeding and growing in Dubai's competitive marketplace. And I'd like to welcome them up onto the stage. First of all, Ramzy Abdul-Majeed, co-founder of Whissle. We have Joby Beretta, partner in Dentons. Omar Khoory, who is the director of Nakheel Retail. And Serg Lopez, co-founder and managing director of Bull&Roo Hospitality Investments. Give them a round of applause, guys, please. So I think the reason that we have everyone here at this stage is there's a lot of good success stories and good conversation pieces around homegrown concepts for people on the stage. Obviously, we've heard a little bit today about the fact that, you know, for every one or two outlets that succeed, there's a lot that fail. And so I want to dive into that a little bit to begin with, looking at, maybe Joby, I'll start with you. The challenges facing, you know, creating a homegrown concept with a desire obviously to expand it and move it throughout the region. Now, how difficult is it to set up a corporate structure here to do that in the first place?
I think if it's a single unit corporate structure, it's quite a smooth process now. I think the big challenge for a group that's looking to expand across the UAE is the fact that there's all these different pockets of legislation. So obviously, if you've got like Roberto setting up in DIFC, you need a DIFC entity, it's a DIFC law, jurisdiction, different rules and regulations apply. Then if you pop over the road to try and set up in, you know, the H Hotel in Oku, you're onshore, so then you need probably an LLC, 51% local shareholder. So you've got those issues, and that, you know, there's over 30 different free zones now in the UAE. So if you need to set up in every single unit, you know, a unit in every one of those, it's a huge admin burden, I think. And then obviously each emirate as well, you need to set up in each emirate as well.
Of course. I mean, Ramzy, when you founded and set up Whissle, was the intention obviously to have multiple brands, multiple outlets, and multiple locations?
Yes, I mean the vision behind Whissle with Marcus and I, and many of you know Marcus, I think, from last year. He's sorry he couldn't be here this year. Back in 2005 was to create brands in Dubai, launch them here, make sure we get them right here, and then take them global using the Dubai brand as a base. That was always the vision of Whissle. So yes, there are challenges, as Joby said, sorry. But you get around them, and that's why we have people like him to help us. And they probably set them up so they make more money. I don't think it's the government's fault, it's them.
Serg, from your perspective, I mean, you know, Bull&Roo, Tom and Serg is something that everyone here knows. You've now, I mean, you've now, what, is it 5 outlets?
Yes, like 5 to be soon, yeah.
Yeah, 5 to be soon, as in maybe tomorrow.
Maybe.
So when you and Tom kind of got together and said, this is what we want to do something different in Dubai, was it challenging to decide, do we set up in a free zone, do we do an LLC? What's the best model for us to be able to expand our brand?
I mean, I think for us was a little bit about also the location. We wanted to be inland, and because of all the different issues that you might have on the free zones and everything. So we just wanted to be inland, and we always wanted to be around Al Quds because we think it's a great location. We always say that it's 15 minutes from downtown, 15 minutes from the marina, easy access, and it's kind of like, it's one of the places that is really growing organically. So we wanted to really go and start working on somewhere inland. Was it difficult? Yeah, when you're doing for the first time, it's always really difficult. It took us a lot of time. I mean, at that time, no one really knew who we were, and you know, and we wanted to really convince people to let us be there. And hey, it took time, but you know, it's like the more you try, and then if you keep going and going and going, you always manage to get it done. But yeah, for us, it was really about the location.
About the location. Omar, from your perspective, from a government relations legislation, I think, you know, for people wanting to invest and wanting to set up restaurants in this market, there's a perception that, you know, regulations can chop and change. It can be very one way one day and different the other. Do you see that as a natural obstacle to people coming into the market to develop food and beverage?
Well, I think most of the government-owned companies such as Nakheel actually work with their tenants and landlords actually to set up their companies or restaurants in Dubai. So we actually help our tenants with creating the companies with the authorities, getting all the approvals required basically from different authorities, either starting from the building permit or creation of the company. If the licenses actually to for that home or whatever required. So we work with the authorities and with our tenants to go through this space and make it as easy as possible.
This is fantastic. Joby, you know, IP protection, you know, protecting your intellectual property, it's expensive. It's challenging to know that you've actually secured it in this part of the world. What sort of advice can you give to people who have maybe got in the back of their minds this amazing brand and concept? And if they were opening it in New York, they'd go and they'd trademark it, they'd register it, it'd be done. Here it's a little bit more difficult.
I mean, it's the same process that you'd follow in New York. It can just be more expensive and a longer process here in the UAE. I mean, the good news is that compared to the corporate setups we're talking about where you could need 30 separate ones, the trademark system here is pan-UAE. So one registration covers you for the whole UAE. That's the good news. The bad news is the cost is about $5,000 roughly for one class, one trademark, which is what is probably one of the highest in the world. And that's only for one class. So in Europe, for example, you'd get 3 classes for a lot cheaper price. So you've got to really think about your classes and maybe not have, you know, as many brands, a big portfolio of brands. If you do, it's going to be very expensive. And also no one can afford, you know, so you launch a brand here in Dubai, no one can afford to register that trademark globally. You know, you'd have to register in every single country around the world. So you've got to really think about your expansion plan. So, you know, are we going to go GCC phase 1? Are we going to go wider? And then register your trademarks to, you know, in advance of those sort of developments. So you need a good IP sort of strategy in a way. Yeah.
But also, I mean, adding to that, you need to also register your logo, the name, what it's going to look. So it's like each, I mean, if you have like Tom and Serg, you need to register which logo you want to put, how you want to call it. And I think the problem is it's not so much about the money, it's also the time that it takes. It could take you up to 6 months to have it all sorted here. So
some countries up to 2-3 years still in the GCC, yeah. The UAE, it's got a lot faster, so they've got an online system that's just coming in, it's a lot quicker. So 6 months is what we're roughly seeing now. But you're right, yeah, you can, if you find in black and white, then you get protection in all the different colours, but it's, yeah, it's an expensive process.
And it's a consideration, obviously, that, you know, you might not allocate when you're looking at investment $5,000 towards it the first place, and when it hits you, you're like, hang on, where do I find the funding for that?
Yeah.
I think the other issue with it is, in Europe you can get an EU trademark, which covers a whole raft of countries. And there's a Geneva Convention with a whole raft of others that get covered. So for us, we do have the problem Joby's relating to Whissle. We've got 14 brands that we've got in the pipeline, 6 are open in Dubai, and we trademark most of those around the world. So just the amount of money that we've spent on Oku is insane. Yeah. And that's trademarks, that's websites, it's everything, the domains, it is global. But, you know, and then when you do it here, one thing that would be nice would be to have a GCC registration. So you don't have to do Qatar and Bahrain and Saudi and UAE all separate.
There's a GCC trademark law that's coming in, and it's just been implemented in Kuwait, but that still won't give you protection across the GCC. It sort of just makes them conform trademark laws around the region. So that's, I suppose, the first step, but ideally, like a community-wide one, we'd have a GCC-wide one. Yeah. So something to put out there, I guess. Yeah.
Omar, from your perspective, you know, what do you look for in a homegrown concept when they come and present knocking on your door? Like, let's say Tom and Serg was here, you know, 2 years ago, knocking on the door of Nakheel going, hi, I want to do this really cool cafe, and it falls under Nakheel. What do you look for from people coming in to do that?
Well, first thing we look after is the people behind it. Who are they, basically, what type of experience they have, what they can bring into, what value they can add, basically, to our development. Obviously, the UAE market is thriving for new concepts. People actually like to try new things. And as we can see, new concepts actually work well if they are managed by professional people with experience. That's the main part that we look after. After that, we look after the secured funding, obviously, to run the project basically, and take it and make it successful.
Tom, do you think from
the other one, Serg?
I'm sorry.
The other one.
It's the end of a long day, guys. Give me a break. Serg, do you think that the market, based on that, I think Omar brought up a good point, that there is a lot of new stuff coming into the market. I mean, I'm going to ask each one of you this question. Yeah. Are we getting saturated? Is it at that point?
I mean, but this is, I've been asked this question a few times, and what happens in New York, what happens in London, what happens in all these places, you know, there's a lot of concepts coming up all the time, and some others are stop working. So it's renewing all the time. I think Dubai is growing really fast. Dubai has a lot of potential. There's a lot of really good people in Dubai that I think this is what we're all about when we're talking about home ground. And this, we were talking at a different conference last week about like why don't we stop importing so much and try to focus and invest in the people here in UAE? Because I mean, there's amazing people with amazing ideas that knock on your door and they don't have that possibility of creating their own projects or ideas. So yeah, it's important to really focus on all that and stop importing a lot of things that are coming from outside.
I completely agree, Ramzy.
I think it's an excellent point. I think we were one of the first to do that 9 years ago when we had the idea of Oku. One of the concerns in this market is still the corporate law around bankruptcy and trying to do something. So in New York, in London, and other cities around the world, people try something. If it doesn't work, maybe shut the company down. It's not the end of the world. Here it's a lot more serious. So it really makes life very difficult for people to try to set something up, because it fails, they've got serious issues with the capital that they've used or suppliers that they owe money to, etc. So it's a little bit more tricky to do that. That's meant this market generally, and we see a lot of places opening. So when you look at this market, there's still a lot of buildings coming up. So unlike New York or London, if you want to open something, you're generally closing something else and
but also in adding to that, the thing is that in other places like New York, London, when you go to a bank and they are going to give you money, they give you a lease for like 10, 15 years. Here banks, first of all, it's really difficult to get money out of them when it's a new concept. And if you get it, you probably get it a 1 year, 2 years.
But the lease is also worth money there because you can trade it. Here you're not allowed to. So it's not your lease. You come out, someone else the landlord will get the premium for it. So that aspect doesn't exist. But you also get the issue here. It's very hard to reinvigorate and revitalize an old place. People just go to a new place. There are new buildings, new hotels, lots of new things opening. So that makes life quite tricky for a new entrant.
Absolutely. I think, maybe Omar, to this point of funding, there's a lot of risk, I guess, when people create a new venture but they have the passion to deliver it. They have the right business model. They have the right, approach, the right vision. They've got the focus is there, the engagement is there, but access to funding is a challenge. Is that something perhaps that could be looked at in the future to take away some of the risks that Ramzy was mentioning about it being an absolute personal approach, and maybe government or large corporate entities could create pools that can be used to support the growth and innovate new business?
The thing is, you see from our point where we are standing as landlords, we actually see a lot of success stories and a lot of failures basically. And we learn from that basically, saying, and it's part of our job is to guide people basically. When people come with new concepts, they normally are very excited. Many of the things that they haven't seen, they didn't study or they didn't go through, they oversee it or they try to ignore basically the risks they get involved into, or they don't run their feasibilities in the right way. So you see them so excited, putting, for example, many local entrepreneurs, for example, or newcomers to the market, invest hugely in the concept that they see as their passion, but it doesn't work. For different reasons. Maybe they didn't do the market study, they didn't check what the market actually requires, or they didn't do their feasibilities right. And so it falls into our responsibility to guide these investors or tenants basically, to make sure that they actually go through this process in the right direction and make sure their project, which is small at that stage, grow in the future, rather than as soon as it starts, it doesn't work, them starting having issues after a while, and forced to shut down. It's bad for us as landlords, basically. And obviously, he will be losing a lot of money.
Joby, one of the things that comes across my desk regularly is people looking for new spaces in town, but the perception is rents are prohibitive. It's impossible to get in these days into certain areas in town because of the way rents are structured. Do you agree? And If so, is there a message that we should be sending out into the marketplace to say, this is food and beverage is a very subjective business. It's a very subjective business. It's very much governed on emotion. So we shouldn't be treating it like a Marks and Spencer's or a Harvey Nicks, because it's going to have a different impact. And maybe it's more of a partnership between landlord and operator as opposed to a strict lease. I don't know, I'm just asking, is there another way that we could look at it to support these people to create greater homegrown concepts moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can do. I mean, I think there has been a shift already away from the sort of traditional approach of the landlords, imposing the terms, and we're seeing them being a bit more creative with the commercial deal now. So before there was a lot of, the base rate, and then there'll be a slice of the revenue, and they could pretty much dictate the terms. And they had, brands queuing up at your doors, and you decided which one comes in. So I think that market's changing a little bit now. I don't know what the rest of the guys think. But I think it's right. And I think the source of funds is a big one. So I think Jason said earlier, it's like that hockey stick effect, right? So you don't just need the cost of setting up. You don't just need your rent for the first month. You actually need to be able to, the capital cash flow to keep you going for 3-6 months until you break even. So it's a huge upfront cost. And I don't think there's enough sort of innovative funding like we see elsewhere, sort of like the peer-to-peer or the crowdfunding, like you said, or Eric's burrito bond that he told us about, last year. And, so I think some of that's starting with Beehive, and there's a few of them growing, but it's not, again, it's probably like the regulative, there's no real regulation around that yet. So even DIFC, which is obviously, designed for the financial sector, hasn't got any really regulated terms about crowdfunding or sourcing, for example. So,
do we see that happening in the future?
Yes, the DFSA said they're going to think about it, they're going to look into it, whether we need it, and then we'll see if the central bank, does something similar for the onshore position. But I think that would really help. Yeah.
But I think it's really important also adding to that, and what Omar was saying is that it's a combination of everything. You need to do a really proper market research, and when you need to include what is the rent that you're going to be paying into it. Because, like that's what happens, you go to many places and you're paying like crazy prices when in another place you pay like half, and you're thinking, why is that? Is the concept is that, and a lot of it's going to the rent. So I think for us, when we're looking for new projects, new places, new locations, it's also, we go, before even we sign any contract, we just go and do a full market research, a full study, a 5-year business plan, and see if that rent works. And if they go and tell us you need to pay 500, we'll go and say, you know what, I give you 150. So, and then you come to sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, sometimes you have something in the middle. Yeah. But it's really, really important to do what Omar was saying, that market research prior, so you make sure that you won't fail. And then is when you have also to negotiate with the landlords in terms of the rent.
Absolutely.
I think there are a few points with that. So quality is ultimately what it's all about. So if we all like something, we'll go to it. These guys opened in El Cause. It's not the place you would normally pick to open, but tons of people went to them because what they offered was fantastic. So it's a clear demonstration. You offer something good, people will come. I think entrepreneurs like us tend to also go, we'll do the research, we'll do the basic feasibilities, etc. But it's also a gut feel. We have a gut of what we think people want, and we go for it. Funding is always an issue, obviously. But when you have that gut feeling, you go for it. And, we look at the market, and there are lots of industry experts, etc. What we did was we had a high-end brand as casual fine dining, and then we looked at where's that niche where people want to go, and it's that mid-range, whether it's with alcohol or without alcohol. And when we opened Claw, we saw a massive uptake on that instantly, almost from day one. So there is that flight where people will go to quality, and we were in Sucre Bahar and get over 12,000, 13,000 people a month coming through our door. It's not as if we do a lot of marketing. So that word of mouth is pretty interesting around the market. Now, the other thing I wanted to say, one of the challenges in this market, going back to the funding, is in this region, there's a lot of money. Humans like to see things that they think look interesting. So someone goes to a play area with their kids, oh, what an amazing business, it's full. I heard this the other day. We're in the wrong business. I shouldn't be a banker. I should be doing this. But they don't think about the rest of the week. It's same with F&B. People with money, and they go, oh, what a great idea to open a restaurant. So we all love to blame and complain about Nakheel and Amar and all the government entities that hold the big malls and the locations. A landlord is always going to want to get as much rent as they can. And some of them do charge extortionate rent. But that's partly the fault of the investors coming. Because what's happening is guys with a lot of money are saying, right, let's open. And they're doing two things to the market, the operational cost that causes a serious problem. And we see this all the time. They're hiring staff in positions that they're not qualified for and paying them way more than they should be getting paid. So that you get these CVs that look amazing, but these people really aren't great. And within that, they're then offering and agreeing to pay sometimes silly rents that do not make sense within a business model. So you're never going to see, Serg or us or some other operators paying 15-20% of of your revenue as rent. But some of these deals are being done in the market where the investors are just paying that. That makes the operation almost impossible, and it sets it up for failure from day one.
Yeah.
But I think it's also, I completely agree with what you said, but in terms of quality, I think you mentioned there are people who want quality. But what kind of quality are we talking about? It's like the quality of the building, of the quality of the space where you're getting into. That's
Quality
really
of the offering.
Exactly. So basically, you don't need to go to a pretty building to actually have an amazing experience, an amazing meal, and have fun, and really enjoy and pay a right amount of price.
It's the concept, you're right.
I think it's really important about that quality, and I think we all are going into that, spending a little bit less probably in fit out and all that kind of beauty around it, and just spend the money into the produce, where it's coming from, what are you eating. Also, it's like the staff that is working for you, the chefs, that are cooking it for you. They were talking before about what is the produce, what are you using, which kind of butter are you using, and all these things. I think that's what I think we all are going more into that quality of the whole experience itself.
Back to one of Ramzy's points before. For you, Serg, gut versus thought. What's the weighting when it comes to making a decision on a concept?
I think gut is really, really important, and you need to really believe in your product. You need to believe in what you are about to show to your customers, and gut is really important. Before we opened Tom and Serg, we had 3 locations to open it, and we still knew that the place was Alcus. And Tom and myself, we had different arguments and said, okay, we need to do this, we need to do there, because it took us 2.5 years to open Tom and Serg, and there is a lot of investment involved. You were not working, we were not working, and it's a lot of money that it goes. So gut, it was really, really important for us, and I think for Tom and Serg, for example, which was our first place, was probably 80% of the weight in that case. The rest has been different because as we have, we were known, people offer us different places, and it was a bit of combination of a 50-50. We knew it was good. We did a good market research because we have a bit more funding. And I'll probably say 50-50, but gut feeling is extremely important for us and for the ethos of our company.
Omar, from your perspective, if any one of the people here or in the room were going to bring a brand that they've home created, that already exists in Dubai, whether it's Oku, whether it's a Tom and Serg, whatever, we're going to bring it to Nakheel, but they were changing it because they were going to adapt it to perhaps the location, if it's on the palm or whatever it is. How much adaptation from the original concept would you accept and have the belief that it was going to be as successful as its original?
I actually like that because I see a lot of concepts basically coming from abroad, not adopting the culture of what people actually like in this region, and doesn't work. From my point of view, I think 30% of adaptation would be a good percentage to what they are offering basically here.
From your perspective, Ramzy, if you were to go and do Oku number 2 or Claw 3 or something like that, how much would you be prepared as the brand owner to adapt your concept to make sure that you still stay true to the initial brief?
Come and see in 6 months. So we are actually, we've got 3-4 concepts opening later on this year. We haven't announced them yet. One's a very badly kept secret.
You can share with us. It's only a small one.
Sure, you guys won't tell anyone, I'm sure. No, we'll have to keep it under wraps officially for, let's call it legal reasons for now, contractual reasons. But you will see an adaptation and a change, and it's important to do that. Something like Oku, we've been 7 years now, we've been open. So there is a change. It is an Oku we're talking about. It is somewhere else in Dubai. There will be a change to it. it's a very interesting change, but you need to keep up to the trend, and customers want to see something different. So they'll get bored. Lots of new concepts have opened since we opened Oku. Our food is still great, but people want to try new things. That's understandable. We do. We all go to new places all the time. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you do need to keep the brand fresh, whether it's the menu items, whether it's the look and feel, any of those things. But I think part of the success of anything, and some people may blush now in the audience, but it's good PR. So, I would highly recommend the company that we use, Set PR. And the girls are sitting somewhere in the audience. But if you it's good marketing, good PR, good word of mouth, it's a full package, and it's all about people. So if you have the right people running a concept, whether it's F&B, any industry, you can give any industry a great product, a great concept is successful, put it in the hands of someone who doesn't know what they're doing, they'll kill it. It's not unique to this industry.
Yep.
So, this industry is, more entrepreneurs that we love to see that try to come up with something. Salt is an amazing example, fantastic, right? And, we've heard they're looking at, opening it elsewhere in the world. So there are these opportunities for these people to take these brands and expand them, but create them here. And it's that full package together. Now, we'd rather be lucky than good any day of the week. You work hard, but you want people to like the offering you have and to enjoy the experience and be true to the experience that you're trying to produce.
Very true. Now, the last question I have is for Joby, because I can't ask Ramzy, and I can't ask Omar, and I can't ask...
You're that desperate, you're going to ask me. Perfect.
No, only because I know they're all going to say to me, sorry, we can't tell you. So, Joby, from your perspective, is there a niche that hasn't been tapped yet in Dubai?
Wow, that's a hard one.
I can tell you.
Oh, you can?
I cannot tell you.
You can't tell me?
I'm sure there is out there, but if I knew it, I'd be doing it now.
Are you?
But it's also what we were saying, is like there's so many, you just need to keep following the trends, keep just traveling around, see what is happening, and keep evolving. It's just what he was saying before, it's like it's customizing also your branding and based on where it's going to be located. So it's always finding what's new and keep evolving. That's what you have to be doing.
There is a report that says that the Dubai market is now moving into the saturated phase. There's it's the AT Kenny's global retail report, and so they rank each of the countries, and UAE for the first time is now moving into that saturated phase, and it's actually moving down the ranking. So whereas before there was lots of investment opportunity, and it was number 4 last year, it's now dropped to number 7. On this recognition that we're getting to that mature phase of the retail and restaurant market here.
There are always niches in every market in the world. You keep seeing things popping up in New York. We've got 2 new concepts coming into this year. One is a comedy club style concept in a different way, where it's actually a show theatre. Two shows a night. We'll run 2 or 3 nights a week, English. Other nights there'll be one is Arabic, one is Indian for the big groups in town, and then the other 10 nights a month for the other ethnicities, a Greek night, a Spanish night, etc. But it's international food. It's not been done. There are lots of shisha and Arabic places in town. You see some very good Arabic restaurants that people go to eat. You see a lot of shisha cafes where people go to smoke shisha. The 40-50% of the venue where you're not allowed to smoke is empty because the food's not good. So we're creating a funky looking restaurant that is very good mix of Arabic food from around the region, where people will come predominantly for the food, but you can also play cards and have shisha and do that, and that's very franchisable. And that again will launch later this year. There are always niches.
I can tell you one of our new concepts. If you
You're
want to know.
now.
Yeah, you see, we've opened it up. This is good. Go.
But for example, following the trend, we believe that one of our next concept is a Mexican canteen, which is called Muchachas, which was launched this weekend in Taste of Dubai. And we believe that kind of Mexican, Latin American, fun, sassy, feminine concept, it's a good trend. So yeah, this is, for example, one of the things that we are opening really soon. And this is one of the things that we are thinking that it's gonna do well. But it's always finding new stuff that is happening.
Excellent. Well, unfortunately, everyone, we have run out of time. So I'm going to say, if you've got any questions for the guys on the panel, they will be out having a cup of coffee because I'm sure you're all dying for one right now. Would you please put your hands together and thank you to people who've had on stage. Thank you. And we'll go, where's Jennifer? How long? 10 minutes? 10 minutes, and then if we can have everyone back in the room in 10 minutes, that takes us to about 1:45. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.